getting down some heavy tracks for our new album. This is Brian Krasman from the Daily News.
And I'm Ray Dieter from the Tribune Review.
And I'm Jim DeBruzzo, and I have a solo on the new album.
I just scream really loud during each one of the tracks, you know. Much the crap you'd find out today. Boy, did that just suck. I haven't talked in a while, people. You know, much like Kurt Warner, I was suggested to rest my vocal cords from voice box for at least a week to 10 days, and I still haven't done that.
Like all new recordings, it'll be available in stores everywhere, you know.
I can't go, though.
Yeah. We'll pick you up a copy. We have a lot of stuff to get to this week. Some guy came back on Raw. The Ultimate Warrior is back. I don't know.
Without the lack of ability, mic skills.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't seen that yet
Pain.
for sure. Yeah.
Well, he would have had to have had a lobotomy while he was off.
Well, we had hoped not anyway.
Well,
He had something when he was off, that's for sure.
he's what's that stuff called? The Meadow Ball 2000
Creatine.
or whatever.
Creatine. Wink,
Yeah.
wink.
He
Is that the
was
stuff that Taz
freaking
kidnaps
huge.
in that commercial?
That's Stacker.
Fat
too.
Brother.
Yeah.
That's the purple bottle stuff.
Well, we're going to get to the return of Triple H to Madison Square Garden to the WWF, and it was 5 minutes of him screaming and spitting water, but it was all right. We're going to show you some footage of that, and there was a WWA pay-per-view. If we feel like talking about that, we'll get to it. Nobody watched it, so it really didn't matter.
I don't even know what you're talking about, really.
You don't deserve to be on this panel. How could you not know?
It was a pay-per-view. Excuse me for not stopping
When
my
did
life.
it air?
From Australia. That's your first bad sign. If the show is taped in Australia and it's on tape
Is this
delay.
the stuff Vince Russo's involved with?
I think
Or
he
he
was.
was.
I don't
He
think he
was.
is anymore. He's
That's
running
enough incentive for me not to watch then.
He's
I
running
don't want to see him wrestling a kangaroo with Ric Flair's blood all
Right.
over his face.
He's running a White Castle now in Cleveland somewhere. So we're going to get to that. We're going to come back and we're going to talk, as we mentioned before, about the return of Triple H. So please come back after this. Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Review. We were going to do some stuff on Triple H. Instead, we're going to do a second movie show since you guys liked it so much. So
Roll it.
yeah, let's go. Obviously, you saw the return of Triple H from the top of the show. He didn't do a whole lot more in those first couple of minutes and spit a whole mess of water, but and actually didn't say much. But nonetheless, some people on the internet were kind of disappointed by his return. I don't understand why. I thought it was great, actually. I thought he did a really good job. I thought there were things about Triple H's return that were completely absent in Steve Austin's return and The Rock's return. What was it, last summer? From the
cares?
I blocked that part out of my
Yeah,
mind.
like
It's-
you know, the emotion.
It's
and
really
all that.
surprising. People, as you say, people on the internet are underwhelmed by it. Because the one thing that was going through my mind watching it is saying, you know, the thing that took away from it for me was me saying to myself, well, you know, I'm going to go on the internet the next day and everyone's going to be like, oh my God, this is the greatest moment in wrestling history. Hell, this is the greatest moment in world history.
Jim, the greatest moment in wrestling history was us doing that movie show.
That was a good show.
Well, that's true. Okay, the second greatest moment in
All right.
wrestling history, and I
Dearly
guess maybe
noted.
the third or fourth favorite moment in world history. It's just people. It was a great moment, but a lot of people tend to overblow things.
But they did in this case too, but the other way.
That's true. That is true. But it's just one of those things, you know.
So they underblew things? Is that what we're saying?
Let's watch the word.
Easy.
Oh, whoa.
Easy. Just because we're on a 10 this
There's
week.
already a clipboard of names wanting to get me off this show and this planet or out of
Well,
this
I think
state.
3 out of 4 of us are on that, but I don't want to mention
I
any
appreciate the
names.
support.
We're going to get to some of those names later. But I don't see, and again, I think it's the WWF critics of the world. And I mean, we're WWF critics. I mean, we rip them almost every week. But
No, we don't.
yeah, you get your certain people that, I don't want to name names, but you get your certain people under that no matter what the WWF does, it's not going to be good enough because it's not WCW 1995.
96.
It doesn't matter. Triple H's return is everything it should have been. I mean, I guess people were expecting they were going to blow up this huge angle and bring back, like, you know, stars from the past, and I don't know what people thought they were going to do. I mean, the guy was gone for 8 months. He's one of the most celebrated stars in wrestling. What more do you have to do than bring him out, let him say a couple words, and let him mix up with Kurt Angle?
It's everything it should have been. It was predictable, and I don't mean predictable in a bad way. It was predictable. Triple H didn't have to do anything else other than go out there and say, "I'm the game, I'm the greatest," whatever he managed to say.
Yeah.
He didn't have to say. He didn't even have to get on the mic.
You have to understand, though, these are the same critics that if Triple H would have came out, Kevin Nash would have came out, Scott Steiner would have came out, oh my goodness, the show is completely
Overblown.
overbooked.
Yeah.
So you have to find that happy medium, and I think the WWF did that with having him come out.
Exactly.
The whole point of it was the WWF, Triple H's return wasn't just something that happened. They've been promoting it. They actually did the smart thing. They made him come out at the end of the show. He talked a little bit, and he brought out a guy maybe not a guy that I would particularly want to see Triple H start feuding with at first, but they brought out a guy, they started a feud with him, it's going to be a strong program, so I don't know what else people want from him. If you want him to come out and win the world title on the first night, that's ridiculous.
Basically it boils down to this. Maybe the Kurt Angle story with him was predictable. I don't mean that in a bad way. Sometimes you got to do what people expect. It doesn't hurt anything. What Triple H did was effective. Like I said, he didn't have to get on the mic at all, and the crowd would have popped for him. They forwarded the story with the Royal Rumble. They started the story with Kurt Angle. They didn't have to do anything else. They didn't even have to fight.
Well, to touch on the point you made, and we're going to get back to this when we come back from break, but the Royal Rumble, and it's interesting because they're actually starting to build this around the stars coming back. Triple H, Kurt Angle announcing he'll be in the Rumble. The Rock, 1 out of 7 isn't bad, but they're actually building the Royal Rumble around the stars that are going to be in it instead of just saying, well, here's the 30 guys, and it's the same stipulation we've seen for the past 13 years that the Royal Rumble's been around. So I think Triple H announcing he's going to be in the Rumble and everybody else announcing they're going to be in the Rumble is a good thing. It'll help the pay-per-view. It'll make people think.
They're making it seem important.
The Royal Rumble, it's going to be the pay-per-view to see.
Exactly.
Well, not to totally crap on his return as I enjoyed it. I would have liked to have seen him maybe talk for another minute or two. Originally, I wanted to see him cut a shoot-style promo against the WWF about in his 8 months absence about how bad the product has gotten, and then have somebody walk out, and obviously that's the guy he feuds with. And the feud with Angle, obviously that's where they're going. It's going to be great, but it's a damn shame that Jericho's feuding with The Rock. I would have given anything to see Chris Jericho walk out with both titles and confront Triple H, much the same way Kurt Angle did. But The Rock needs somebody to beat for 2 titles, and nobody else has 2 at the moment besides the newly tag champions crowned.
I tell you what, on your point, I think the WWE can make up for the not having Jericho and Triple H because maybe they're working towards Jericho and Triple H.
Don't say it because they're not. They're not.
Yeah, don't get your hopes up.
But
it's a load of garbage.
I still think the WWF knows that's the right way to go with WrestleMania. But we're going to come back. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more about Triple H's return and some other stuff on Raw. So please stay with us.
WrestleMania match that never will be, that everybody wants to see, which was a complete load of bunk out of your mouth. I'd like to add about Chris Jericho.
It's not bunk out of my mouth.
No. I'd love to see the match. I'm sure all of us would love to see it. The fact of the matter is, when you throw the wild card in, and by that wild card I mean the Scorpion King, yours truly, they will never let a WrestleMania go past as long as The Rock is living and breathing, which who cares, without him being in the main event.
We're getting into a heated debate here, but
No. Honestly, all kidding aside, you will not see Hunter Chris Jericho for the unified title at WrestleMania. As much as I would love to see that, in all seriousness, you're going to see something stupid like Rock Austin for the 98th time, where The Rock takes the stunner and rolls on his head and tries to fall out of the ring.
Damn those guys for putting the moneymakers in the main event, huh?
But you know what?
It's WrestleMania. You don't need to sell the event. It's already sold on the premise. Oh, the Super Bowl. Let's see. We got Arizona and Cincinnati in there. It's the Super Bowl. You're going to watch it.
Well.
Yeah,
right, Carmen?
I tend to agree. I mean,
you're going to watch it just for the new commercials from Pepsi.
Yeah, there's another reason to watch it.
Carmen's nodding in approval. Good.
Oh my God, he's on angel dust.
I didn't know Jim Henson was on the panel now. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, The Rock in the main event of WrestleMania is completely unnecessary. It should not happen. And I've been a proponent of you got to put your moneymakers in your main event matches. But eventually, you need to find new moneymakers because eventually your moneymakers aren't going to be moneymakers anymore. And The Rock, once he has a blockbuster movie in April, which he will, and decides to go to Hollywood, and you don't have new stars built up, which we've learned this lesson before, haven't we?
Somewhere.
Chris Jericho should win.
Kevin Nash comes screaming the mind.
Well, there is no excuse other than the WWF's lack of balls for not having Chris Jericho in the main event of WrestleMania. That should be the match. Triple H, Chris Jericho should be the match. I totally agree with you, Tom. The Rock should not win at the Royal Rumble.
Well, think about it this way. We've seen The Rock versus Steve Austin 2 out of the last 4 years at WrestleMania. There's definitely something that needs to be changed. And that's why I brought up Chris Jericho and Hunter, because it seems logical to have Chris Jericho keep the title at the Royal Rumble, defeat The Rock, wrestle whoever at the February pay-per-view, and then go into WrestleMania, fight Triple H, fight somebody who people want to see Triple H win the title. People want to see Jericho lose a title. That's the premise of a good World Championship match.
Exactly.
Just to draw on this point, you mentioned about the blockbuster movie coming out in May. I don't know. This is just rumor, speculation. I think it's true, actually, that the fact that The Rock has to eventually leave the WWF for a week or two during a couple house show runs and refilm some scenes from the movie.
Yeah,
because
he's not going to miss
quote
TV.
unquote to save the movie. Well, he's in it. You're not going to save the movie if The Rock's in it. So
quiet. The president of the fan club's talking.
No, I have a question now. As I recall, in The Mummy 2, they built up the Scorpion King.
Jim, we're not allowed to talk about movies.
I'm sorry. We'll get to it off screen. Actually, I wanted to touch on a point Tom had to close the segment about wanting Triple H to say all this. And
No. Let me reiterate. I would have liked to see him
another minute or two.
where he doesn't necessarily talk about anything, not address Stephanie, his wife, Ric Flair being in the WWF, the state of the WWF for the past 8 months. I would have liked to see him maybe touch on it. He doesn't have to go through everything.
That's fine, but the main fact in the God, I wish I could talk right.
That'd be great.
You don't need it. You didn't need it on Raw. Now, if he comes out on SmackDown, talks about his injury a little more, talks about Angle, that's fine. And you could have gotten a little more of Triple H on the mic, maybe talking about his injury. Anything else, you just didn't need it. I mean, you didn't.
The thing is, though, notwithstanding the severity of his injury, I think the WWF did an excellent job with the YouTube videos showing the rehab and showing what it took to come back and having him talk over the clips. I think that in itself was enough to show, this is where he was and this is what happened and this is how far he went. I don't think you necessarily have to have him talk about it on SmackDown. Not that I wouldn't want to hear it, but every John Q fan out there is going to go, there's got to be something else on.
I think one of the many major problems that WWF has had is either A, overbooking, or just doing things you don't need to do. And again, Monday night, they did everything right, and that's fine.
Let's not get head over heels here. They did everything right.
The Triple H moment.
The beginning segment with Ric Flair and the ending segment with Triple H were done right. The rest of the show was throwaway at best.
I was referring to the whole Triple H thing. You didn't do too much, and that's fine.
Well, I'd like to get into the fact that what Triple H could have said real quickly here, the fact that maybe he could have brought up 1995 and his teaming with Mantar if he would have spoke maybe another minute or two, but obviously we wouldn't have seen that. So, from the Isle of Crete.
You bring up a point about Ric Flair and Vince McMahon. That's another thing we probably want to talk about, the Flair and McMahon interaction at the beginning of the show. Another highlight.
I believe we have the clip for that, though, but it's probably not queued up. So.
No, we'll save that for next segment when we talk about
pull
Flair
out the
and Vince
laser
McMahon.
disc.
But we can talk actually about the, main event of the paper.
Monday Night Raw, the War
I want
Zone.
to talk about the tag titles. Can we talk about that?
It's your show.
Okay. Taz and Spike Dudley. Good win.
So what were you saying?
Brian, are they going to do something with Taz now that he has a tag title?
I'm not even getting into this. This is not even worth talking.
No, just let me just get this out there. I thought it was good how they set it up for one show. I think mostly it was a hometown win for Taz, and I'm sure he'll be giving up the belts at the Royal Rumble.
He probably,
if not this Thursday.
Well,
he's probably giving them up now.
I believe
He probably walked through the curtain and they said, "Come on."
You had your moment.
No, they're not going to do anything with Taz, but it was a decent match. It was a decent way to set it up, and that's really all I have to say about that.
The fact that the Dudleys, if they ever win the tag titles again, I'm going to scream like a little banshee
Well, they are.
over on this panel on this right corner of the table.
They may
here.
have already won them, but
Tom, you might want to start.
Wow.
It's a shame, too,
I'll
because
wait.
as much of a joke as Taz is in the WWF, the guy can still draw money. The guy can still give interviews. It's up to the WWF to let him do that. And
he still gets a reaction.
I'm sorry, on a lesser note, look what the Dudleys did Monday night with the brief interview time they had. I thought they did a good job.
Decent interview.
Yeah.
Well,
Either
that's
way.
the problem.
Yeah, but they don't do anything else with them. They don't build on it.
But
That's why the Dudley boys are falling into that
Dudleys,
boss man category
they
of
come
every
in-
time they come out, I just leave out this big groan like they
Right,
come off the
I mean,
television.
they come out
So
Monday night, give a
overexposed.
decent interview. If you build on it, they can be one of your most effective tag teams.
When I saw the Dudleys interview, I said, okay, finally they're promoting a Dudley Boys match and not just throwing it out there. I actually wanted to see the match. So.
We're also dealing with a one-dimensional
I can
WWF
live with-
right
I can
now.
live- I can live with a feud between the two teams.
Well,
At
we're
least
black
it's not
and
the
white.
Hardys and Edge and Christian. Take us out. You brought us in. Take us out.
Well, we shall be back to talk about more happenings in the world of bocce ball. Actually, pro wrestling. We will be back.
Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Review, the greatest show on earth. And we just saw the Ric Flair McMahon story continue on Monday night. It's good to see Ric Flair. He may have lost a little bit in the ring, but it's good to see him still get busted open with the best of them.
The hell with Flair, though. Did you see McMahon trying to throw those punches? He was like, did he talk to Sid before the match?
Yeah.
How do you throw a really crappy punch?
Every time Ric Flair blades, it's a major medical emergency.
Isn't it great, though?
Yeah, Starrcade '95. If anybody has that tape at home,
That was Battleable, correct?
no, that was the ill-fated WCW versus New Japan.
Oh.
tape.
Great concept, great idea. But
Yeah.
Hogan, well, never mind.
No. Randy Savage fights Ric Flair in the finals. In the finals of this little three-way thing they did for the WCW title. And I don't know what Flair was thinking. Whoever came up with this idea was thinking, but somebody came up with the idea of Randy Savage should blade Ric Flair. He almost cuts his forehead off. I mean, the blood is just.
Why don't you just have the guy from Texas Chainsaw Massacre do it while you're at it? That's about as careless as Savage is. So.
Yeah. I don't want to give any of the kids at home any ideas, but I swear Ric Flair's got to take like about a bottle of aspirin before he does blade jobs. Because, I mean, when he bleeds, it's like Dusty Rhodes. I mean, Dusty Rhodes bleeds at the dinner table.
Hey, it
Bleeds
represents
gravy, though, so it makes sense.
represents tradition, though. Something it is very much lacking in the WWF. Any match with Ric Flair was great, let's put it that way, from good to great. Any match where Flair's white hair was red was a classic.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care who he was wrestling, it was a classic, unless it was like Eric well, I don't even want to say
His
that.
hair would played with when he bleeds.
What do we quit using that B word? We're giving away insider secrets.
What?
When they bleed for some unknown reason.
Well, every time The Rock bleeds, it looks like he just took like eucalyptus leaves or something like that. He's like look on his face, he doesn't know where he's at. It's not even a good job.
Why can't he just sneeze one? I don't want to explain how it's done.
I was thinking about the koala bears in Australia. There's major brush fires.
You could always be Tommy Rich and bleed when you get hit with one of Al Snow's styrofoam heads.
Now, Tommy,
circuit.
wouldn't it be great?
Tommy Rich, what was behind that whole situation with Tommy Rich?
He just liked.
What'd you say? Oh my God.
Well, I didn't hear it either.
Wouldn't it be great one time
I
when,
did.
right before The Rock started to bleed, if he sneezed and like the whole face fell off?
Don't think that's possible.
Well, I can dream,
with this
can't I?
topic?
I hate The Rock. But anyway, we showed that
No, really?
interview. I'm lying. We showed that interview from this past Monday on Raw for one reason. Well, for a couple different reasons. Obviously Vince McMahon and Ric Flair are going to wrestle at the Rumble. And probably the best match on the show.
I was going to say, was one to kill time?
Hey, I love that segment. I would trade every segment of Raw for the past month for the last segment of this week's Raw and the first segment with Flair and Triple H. But we showed that clip for a reason. That is how you give an interview, with drama, with emotion. When you get in there, start singing about strudel, or start going, what? Like some ass.
What?
My point has been proven.
The ass is spoken.
Hee-haw. Whatever a jackass noise makes.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
It's falling right to
It's
hell.
time for both pairs of glasses to come off.
ProWrestlingReview.com to order that outtakes video. Too hot for TV. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. This is also, Ric Flair's doing a great job, don't get me wrong, but this is also the same Ric Flair toward the end of the WCW days who just wasn't that good at what he did.
Jim,
look at the
ring and
environment he
out
was
there.
working in.
Stop. WCW in the last years of that company. Jim,
That's
I've been
fine.
watching wrestling since I was 5 years old. Okay, I've always wanted to be. It's everybody's dream has been watching wrestling since they were 5 years old to be in a company.
Right.
If I worked for WCW in the last couple years, I'd walk to the ring with a gun in my hand. I mean,
I say mouth or hand.
damn.
One of those high-powered rifles.
Nobody can
But
be happy.
it's just one of those things. Ric Flair is great right now. People love him. Let's see what he's going to be doing 6 months to a year from now.
You and your
He'll be
future
great.
planning.
Yeah.
You know what? You make me sick.
I'm sorry.
Let it happen.
Ric Flair,
God
nobody.
knows nobody in the WWF office does this, so somebody has to.
It was death for Ric Flair.
Well-
Nobody could be blamed for going on showing zero emotion.
there's a fine line between not caring and being a professional and trying. And
There's nothing he could have done.
There's too many
Easy there.
excuses for what went wrong in WCW. You just can't blame it all on Eric Bischoff.
Yes, you can.
95% of it.
No,
yes.
He brought in David Arquette and Jason
99%.
Hervey, for Christ's sake.
Well, no,
Whoops. No.
You understand my point.
Let me tell you something though, really about Ric Flair. Even as bad as WCW was, Ric Flair would always come out and be a professional. He would always come out and try to do things for the company. He let Vince Russo shave his head because
Yeah,
somehow he
you're right.
thought that would help his company, WCW, the National Wrestling Alliance.
Let me change.
Flair was always a professional.
Let me change direction with this. A majority of the fans got disinterested after a while in Ric Flair. I'm just waiting to see if it's going to
That's not
happen.
his
That's not true.
Well, it's not true.
No, it's not true. How do you figure the
Did you
majority?
look at the rating segments for Ric Flair?
Oh, give me a freaking break.
I think Jim does have a point to a
Ratings.
degree.
The same people that are on the internet and in the crowd cheering and going nuts for Ric Flair.
Because you
are
have
the
these
same
asshole
people,
fans.
2 years ago.
That's two. Like,
2 years
Might as well
ago.
just go for broke
These are
here.
the same people 2 years ago said Ric Flair should retire and never return.
You have these fans that chant what? That don't give a damn if Ric
I
Flair
got
comes out and
around
cuts a
there.
great interview, if Triple
You're
H has a
right.
great match. Those are the people that draw your ratings. fans like us, Brian reiterated, he's been watching wrestling since 5. We want to see stuff like that. We don't give a damn how many times Steve Austin says what.
Yeah.
You're
And
right.
the thing is,
And we're the
we
vast
represent
minority.
Yeah, exactly. We represent the minority of wrestling fans, the ones who actually give a damn what goes on, and not the cool catchphrases that come out of the jerks' mouths that
The
come
cool
out.
catchphrases are the ones that are over and are making the money, though.
No, I refuse to believe
I'm
that.
sorry, this is a misplaced debate. It should be.
T-shirt sales don't equal good
the
wrestlers.
same people that are going nuts for Ric Flair right now are the same people 2 years ago said he should retire and never
Because
come back.
WCW made people not care
We're
about
black
it.
and white.
WCW made people
We're
not
black
care
and white.
about
We have to come back. Obviously, we're going to continue this. We will. I hope you guys don't mind. I'm taking 2 segments out. I won't be on the next segment, so we'll be right back. Graciously brought to them by us. Well, that sounds real catchy, doesn't it? Brought to you by us.
Just swear. We can
So
swear.
anyway, why don't you go what you do so well in whatever the hell it is you
Forget
do.
the questions that I asked the week before. No.
Exactly.
Okay, questions from last week's trivia contest. Name the opening match of the first ever In Your House. It was Bret Hart versus Hakushi. I know all you have that on tape still. The Intercontinental title match at the
Shinjo
1954
Tani.
Thanks, Tom. The Intercontinental title match at SummerSlam 94 was between Diesel and Razor Ramon. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall for all you fans out there. Question number 3. Name at least 3 of Ray Traylor's, if there's not been a dozen. Name at least 3 of Ray Traylor's gimmicks. Big Boss Man, Big Bubba Rogers, Guardian Angel, Worthless, anything like that would be fine. Question 4
You
from
get a
last...
copyright problem with that one.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of people are. Question from last week's show, Nash's opponent at the 1995 Royal Rumble, and how did the match end? It was obviously Kevin Nash versus Bret Hart, and the match was ruled a no contest because Vince McMahon came out and stopped it because it sucked.
Really?
Again, I think that's what he said.
Yeah, well, you know, that's my take on it.
We're
anyway.
embellishing on the facts a little bit.
This week's winner is Jessica Russo from Swissvale, hopefully no relation to Vince Russo. God bless. Brian, tell her what she has won.
Jessica, what you've won from Original Pizza Works in Javosburg, Pennsylvania, you win a gift certificate or something of that nature for 1 large pizza with 1 topping, an order of chicken wings, and 2-liter bottle of carbonated beverage, and you get to pick it. They don't do it. You pick it. That's it. I have nothing else to say.
Tell them where they can redeem that.
I did. Original Pizza Works, Javosburg, United States of America.
That's one of those
Eastern
things. That's one of those
time
things they harp on
zone,
us
East
to
Coast.
repeat.
It's like Rocky and Apollo Creed over there.
It's
They
like the
hate each other,
website,
but they love each other.
ProWrestlingView.com. No. Okay, well, this week's question is, who did The Rock face at the 1998 King of the Ring finals?
Rock free edition of Pro Wrestling Review Trivia
You're
once
the one that
again.
came up with the question.
Oh. No, I didn't.
I did.
All right, so log on to ProWrestlingView.com, click on trivia, answer those 3 questions, mail it to ProWrestlingReview@Lycos.com. Our question again is, who did The Rock face at the 1998 King of the Ring finals?
Tell them where they can log on, Jim.
It's ProWrestlingReview.com. See, now, you're going to get us in trouble with the producer, because you know you
Oh,
have to repeat
screw
things.
it.
Screw the producer.
Tom,
Anyway,
take us out of here.
answer the 3, the 1 on the show. Good luck. Eat some pizza. Write some stuff down. Send it to us.
And hell, watch the rest of the show.
Exactly. Goodbye.
Tom was strangling Jim. Well, that was during
my
the
own
break. I'm
microphone.
sorry, I was mistaken. That was during the break. But
With my own microphone
It-
cord.
I-
That
I'm
did it.
just gonna slowly back away.
I understand your point you're trying to make. With obviously, wrestling fans are naive. They're average wrestling
Fickle.
fans. They buy into the whole RVD. Smell what the
You're
Rock
right.
is cooking.
You're
What?
right.
But
And how often have I criticized RVD on this show? I'm sorry, Rob Van Dam is nothing right now.
But my point is, and this is something the WWF probably should take heed in. T-shirt sales, ratings don't make great wrestlers. Wrestling, the ability to cut good interviews make good wrestlers. And when you stop booking for ratings and
You're
you
right.
start booking for wrestling and the guys in the matches, you'll be a lot better off. Like the whole draft idea was supposed to go down this past Monday on Raw, but rumors, whatever the hell you have it, they put it off because Triple H's return was enough. Wonderful. They don't want it. They want to save that to bump the ratings of another week's show.
Well,
they could have done both technically in the same show, and the ratings, who cares?
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think there's a fine line between both. I think to some degree you have to book for TV and pay-per-view because that's wrestling today. I mean, you have to.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But you can include the good wrestling, Chris Benoit, Jericho. I mean, let me put it this way. There's room for both Flair, for the way he's performing now on the mic. There's room for the way The Rock performs on the mic. Both work to that degree. But just to finish, I guess I didn't really explain my Flair situation as well as I wanted to. But let me bring up this point.
You don't say.
Shut the hell up. It's not going to be Tom. I'm going to be swearing in a minute. When Kevin Nash comes back, when he wrestles, when he gets on the mic, people are going to be going nuts for him. People are going to think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and in 6 months from now, nobody's going to care.
Look at Nash, though. He's worthless. He's a bag of crap. You know, as
Nash
nice as I
can't
can
sustain,
say that.
Nash can't sustain the popularity that Flair and Triple H can, because he can't do the things.
Well, I'm not even including Triple H in this even.
Well, he's on a whole different.
Yeah, he's on a whole different level.
Hypothetically, I just want to bring up this point. You bring Ric Flair out on Raw, unannounced with no music. No, screw this, not unannounced. He's been there. You bring him out with no music on Raw, he is going to get cheered. You bring Kevin Nash out without that, oh crap. Who's this big, tall jackass with a limp?
It's just one of those things.
Knee operations, buddy.
Let's shelve this debate for the next 6 months. We'll see how Ric Flair.
We can't.
Well,
you know what? I'm going to say something real quick about Flair.
I want to see if Ric Flair can hold his popularity.
I was always a big advocate of the fact that you can have entertainment on the WWF. You need those certain things that The Rock does and Steve Austin does, because you can't push away all your, I want to say mainstream fans, people that just tune in sporadically. But Ric Flair can also, he shows how you can cut a serious promo and entertain. Him being serious about a topic is entertaining to me. Him taking his opponent, Vince McMahon, who's not serious at all as a wrestler, seriously in an interview is entertainment to me. But again, we talked about it before, that some fans have to have The Rock singing or Austin saying what, and you can't just completely ignore that stuff, because it has to be a part of your show.
I just like to say it never used to be that way, and granted, wrestling's popularity was never as high as it was in the past, I'd say at least 4 to 5 years, and maybe that's why. I hate to say it, you do have a point. There is room for both. There's room for a Ric Flair interview and The Rock interview, vice versa.
But you can't have the entertainment part about Rock saying things like, you know, giraffe testicles on TV. You can't have that overtake the fact that we want to sell pay-per-views, we want to sell our ratings on TV. That stuff's the most important. So when the entertainment aspect completely ignores the fact that we're trying to sell pay-per-views, that's when the entertainment aspect becomes a problem.
What? We're getting into selling pay-per-views, and that's right. But the WWF has forgotten how to sell pay-per-views. They haven't sold a pay-per-view since WrestleMania 17, and the only reason they sold that pay-per-view is because they so happened to walk into a Rock-Austin feud that got hot. The WWF needs friggin' Ric Flair, because he made the fight between Vince McMahon and Ric Flair at the Royal Rumble mean something. A match that should mean nothing. Because 53-year-old Ric Flair is friggin' awesome, and Ric Flair understands wrestling. The WWF needs to realize that the 2-3 year wave they were on is over. That people aren't watching wrestling for the same reasons they were 2-3 years ago. The same people who were watching wrestling 2-3 years ago aren't watching wrestling anymore. Eventually, it's time to get back to Ric Flair and Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho and Triple H and guys that can bust people's asses in the ring and not come out and say stupid crap. Those days are over. They're done. And that's why Ric Flair's great. If the WWF screws him up, like WCW screwed him up, then Ric Flair will be useless in 6 months.
It's not a matter of the WWF screwing him up. It's a matter of, in this area where they, the fans burn characters and interesting aspects of the story out. Sometimes the WWF does it, sometimes the fans do it. I'm just saying the possibility exists in 6 months. Ric Flair may be as good as he ever was on the mic. People may not care.
But it's to be the WWF's fault if that's
Will
the
it be?
case. Yes, because Ric Flair's great.
He is
Ric
great.
Flair gets it. Ric Flair is a great performer.
Absolutely,
No,
absolutely
you
right.
can't go to black and white yet. I got to get something out.
But if they don't change a thing about Ric Flair and the fans don't care, then
That's right.
not-
If they don't change a thing about Ric Flair, because that's the WWF screwing him up. I'm sorry, Tom.
Just real quick, if you had this much emotion for the Vince McMahon Ric Flair match at the Rumble, as much as anticipated as you want to see this, if you had this at Survivor Series for the fate of 2 companies, you would have sold a lot more pay-per-views.
Exactly.
There's more build-up to this, more story to this than the fate of 2 companies that have been around for 150 years or whatever.
I completely agree with you, Tom. I completely agree with you, Brian. And let's remember how Ric Flair's match with Vince McMahon meant something. They did it with past events. They showed clips, old clips. And the same way they could have sold Survivor Series is the same way they're selling the Royal Rumble now.
It's a classic wrestling booking style. It's not New Age. It's not Vince Russo. It's not Crash TV. It's what works all along. What would have worked all along.
Some people still care about the past.
We're not going to come back because we said everything we needed to say.
Well, we're going to try to come back, and we're going to talk more about wrestling. So please come back with us.
For the viewers. And read some of your mail and some of the comments that you guys have left on our webpage. And again, we just want to reiterate that if you go to the webpage, www.prowrestlingreview.com, each individual person on this panel has a page. If you click on our image, you can read our column. And at the bottom of the page, we have a question. You can answer the question. Please stick to the question. That's kind of the point of this whole Well, that's not even let's not even talk about it. It doesn't mean anything.
And if you want, I'm sorry, if you want to write us, it's pro-review at lycos.com for, well, just about anything you want to talk about.
But we did have questions on some of the, like I said, on all the pages, and
a lot of the viewers did a really good job answering the questions too.
Exactly. I know one of them was, what were some of your favorite moments of 2002? That was one thing that we had people going to, and
actually 2001. You're worked up.
Yeah,
I understand.
Triple H returning, that's a good moment.
Yeah, 2001. We had what was your favorite moment of 2001? We had some pretty interesting ones. We had actually, I'm going to read this because Joe Mama from Homestead has been posting for a long time, and Joe Mama
You got it right this
learned
time.
how to spell Homestead. Congratulations. He said fully shoot promo about the titles. And I agree with him. That was actually a very good moment because
read the ending.
You saw what happened.
biatch. But
Oh,
actually
is that what that
spelled that
says?
wrong. I'm spitting now. This is great. He spelled it wrong. It's supposed to be biatches, but he has it spelled biuches. Unless that's another street lingo that I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
Brian,
know
baby steps, learning,
Yeah.
spelling, everything.
But no, the Mick Foley promo was great, and it was. I remember back when we were doing the show, we were talking about maybe this is a step forward for the WWF. And if you notice, ever since Foley did cut that promo, we haven't seen the rapid fire title changes. They've been a little bit more consistent. The Taz Spike Dudley switch aside, and we don't know where they're actually going to end up going with that. But maybe that did work. Maybe some sense actually did come into their heads a little bit, and the title situation will calm them down a little bit.
Well, I posted a column about Kevin Nash, and we spent most of last week's show talking about if he comes back, what's he going to do, what's he going to say. So
Right.
some of the viewers out there, we had a lot of different people. A lot of different people said a lot of different things. A lot of people liked the fact that Kevin Nash was coming back. Some people weren't sure about it. One that we got was from Dan Jakubek. He said he'll succeed for a short time, but for some strange reason, people seem to like Kevin Nash, and I think we would agree with that.
Yeah.
Ken Porter from North Braddock put it best in like 2 sentences. I think he will succeed. He just needs to work to make the Federation the best it can be. Selfishness won't help. And I think that's pretty much the sentiment of the WWF and us in this panel.
Yeah.
Ric Flair has been on the business for 20 years. He's
Oh, here we
maintained his
go
popularity.
again.
I'm tying this in with the Kevin Nash thing. He's maintained his popularity for 20 years. How long has Kevin Nash been popular? 6 days. End of story. I just like to tie that
The
in with
the lowest drawing champion in WWF
6
history.
days? Wow.
It's a testament to Flair for his popularity and him being in the business for as long as he has been. I won't
Can't
disagree
hold
with that.
down a good guy with that much charisma, with that much ability.
Read your
Well,
game
this is
letter.
actually from the Lycos account. So this is from Todd with a bunch of change after his name, some numbers from AOL.com. The best internet provider there is, kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you a story. I won't get into this.
I got stories
Anyway.
of that too, believe me.
Anyway, this was about first show. Was last week's show the first show of the year? I don't know.
It was.
Okay, just wanted to congratulate you guys on your first show of the year. It was one of the best you've done in a while. It mentions about us taping at 7 in the morning, which we were overtly, we were first, but we were overtly sarcastic, and he offers a suggestion that we should tape early in the morning, which I don't mind. Like I said, I haven't taken my medication for 3 weeks, and it's starting to show rapidly over the course of a couple days. But one of the lines in there, great comedy, Nash higher than Chronic, that is kind of great comedy.
Yeah,
but,
it was, yeah.
We got to thank our director for writing that line down.
Anyway,
Taking
I'd like to
shots
credit.
at Scott Hall, I think he.
Speaking of cliches
Shots
and
with
stuff, I think
Scott
he's
Hall?
given us a new.
Act.
Look, listen, I'm trying to talk. I think this Todd has given us a new cliche, which I'd like to add because there's a place for it in all wrestling. The icons of the review. So we'll have to sign off
Could you
each and
live with
every
being
week.
an icon?
Yeah, or legends. Apparently.
Somewhere.
Living legends.
Yes.
Well, I believe Tom's page had what do you expect in the year 2002 coming up, and we got a bunch of simple responses. I'll read most of them.
I'm a simple guy.
So a couple go more in depth. John from Pittsburgh writes, I see Triple H winning the world title. Dan, who you mentioned earlier, also responded, I see wrestling going downhill fast.
We're gonna have to work on Dan a little bit.
Yeah.
He's almost as pessimistic as we are.
He speaks
he's
the
getting it.
truth.
We're training him well.
Good job, Dan.
Another one, I can't imagine that anything too
22.
surprising will happen. The same people win the world title as well. We just kind of had a sliver of that
Brouhaha.
debate. This one from D in Trenton. I hope we get more surprises at the pay-per-views. New people. I guess with all the people that are currently not in the WWF, I suppose that's possible.
What was that guy's name that you just read?
Just says D from Trenton. Or
No,
was
no,
it-
no. Actually, it's D.
Oh, sorry,
Trenton.
D Trenton. Okay, I apologize. Another name I screwed up. Mike from
go.
Pittsburgh. I really don't want to know because I think something bad is going to happen. Ray from West Mifflin. All I know is that Hall and Nash have anything to do with it, then wrestling is finished.
Is that Rey Mysterio talking?
It might be. He's working there. Real quick one from Trevor in West Mifflin. I think in 2002 a new era will happen for the WWF. Maybe you might see a whole new level of wrestling is going to happen. I'm sorry, he's doing a complete run-on sentence here. You'll see more old names that come back like Ric Flair. That would be a good thing.
Is
to
he coming
scare-
back? When?
Well, right. But he goes on. He just kind of touches on what we just debated. Maybe you'll see more of the older style, and well, we can only hope.
Let's not even get into the older style argument again because it's just going to get ugly. But yeah, we did have some, a couple of going back to the favorite moments of 2001. We had, I'm sorry, I just lost my train. Oh, we got something from George W. Bush from Washington D.C., which I kind of doubt is actually from him. But
You think so?
yeah,
You never know, though. Our power stretches.
it
well
did.
beyond
We're more. We have
great
strength of-
orator,
we have the
Ronald
strength of
Reagan.
10 shows. But actually, one guy, Jeremy from Upper St. Clair, said that his favorite moment was WCW dying. Long live the WWF. Sadly to say, that was actually not a good moment from 2001 because the lack of competition the WWF had throughout the rest of the year was very obvious because the product, as we feared, kind of went downhill because there wasn't that other promotion there to kind of push them. And maybe with the debut of the WWA, maybe with the debut of the WWA on pay-per-view, it's going to give the WWF a little bit of that push to improve the product and get a little bit better because God knows Conan has the strength to change the entire industry.
Mexican heavyweight champion.
I think we see the Mexican version of Road Dogg, but oh well.
He fought Road Dogg.
That similarly can go in a number of directions.
Well, I believe this was segment 5, so we're going to come back and we're going to do our world famous rants, so please stay with us.
This week, and I'm going to talk about the word "what" and
What?
Right.
The producer made me do that.
How
Mr. Dickinson
stupid it
said
sounds
say
when
that.
it's delivered in the wrong way. As big a phenomenon that it is that the WWF fell ass backwards into, and as big as entertaining as it is when Steve Austin does it, and as fun it is for the fans to do it, I have a real problem with this word now because it seems like every show, every crowd, they're just saying "what" for everybody. So basically, I'm using the power of Pro Wrestling Review here. I'm putting a ban on the word. It's entertaining. It's entertaining when Steve Austin does it because he feeds lines to the crowd, and that's always great interaction. But don't say "what" when Kurt Angle's walking to the ring. Don't say "what" and interrupt Kurt Angle when he's trying to form a complete sentence. It's not needed. It's really quite stupid. And on a related note, I just heard this report before we started taping the show today. Raw in New York this week during the Star Spangled Banner, apparently one report said the crowd was yelling "what" after every line of a song that Lillian Garcia was singing during her singing. And if that's true, and no reason to doubt it, that is just utterly disgraceful, especially in New York. And it's just outrageous and disgraceful. And the crowd in New York should be ashamed of themselves.
Speaking of outrageous and disgraceful, this show. Now, The Rock, as we've complained, and I've never been against The Rock. I've kind of supported him through the years. I mean, I understand his benefits to the company, and he is a big name player, and he does make money, and and all that kind of crap. But there's no way in hell he should win this Royal Rumble match against Chris Jericho. It's getting to the point where, if once the WWF decides to take a risk with the guy, once he goes out and gets one subpar reaction, they decide, that's it, we've got to pull him back, it's a disaster, the whole company's going to fold. That's not true. If the WWF ever hopes to establish new stars, they need to go back and look at how they established guys like Steve Austin and The Rock and Triple H and Kurt Angle. And even Kurt Angle still isn't quite to the level he should be. It was by taking a guy, making him a solid character, and giving him strong wins. Chris Jericho needs to win the match at the Royal Rumble. It was a great move giving him the world title. He's a guy who can be a main event player for him both as a face and a heel. And if they take the belt off him at the Royal Rumble, any advancement they made in his character will be destroyed completely. He'll be back at square one, and they'll have to build him all over again. And just real quickly, Ravens over Dolphins, Jets over Raiders, Packers over 49ers, and Eagles over Bucks. Sorry.
That's good. Write those down for me.
Get those betting lines, kids.
I wouldn't do that.
But a couple weeks ago, I wrote a column about Jerry the King Lawler and his return to the WWF. And one of the things that I said was he'll be a nice break in the action from Paul Heyman, who did a very good job. Maybe not so much like Lawler, who's more fun and energetic and sexually directed. Paul Heyman pretty much gives backgrounds for wrestlers and things like that. So when you watch Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle, you understand where these two guys are coming from. But in the past few weeks, and last Monday specifically, Jerry Lawler's really starting to get on my nerves. His self-gratification jokes and him pumping his water gun. And I mean, I enjoy a wet t-shirt contest as much as anybody, but he's really, really starting to grate on my nerves. And this, again, stems from the fact that the WWF announcing team, they really don't have anybody that can fill in for Jerry Lawler other than Paul Heyman. But given that whole invasion storyline, I don't think Heyman's in a position to come back. But, you look at Michael Cole, you look at Jonathan Coachman, you look at Chantel or whatever her name is. I don't even know. I don't even care, really. There's really just nobody that can step up and be a good color man like a Bobby the Brain Heenan, who unfortunately we found out is suffering from throat cancer, or a Jesse the Body Ventura, who maybe not a lot of people liked, but at least he challenged the color man, or not, I'm sorry, the play-by-play man to, stick up for what he wants to say in the match, or call the match the way he wants to see it, and not somebody who just shoots a super soaker at women. I mean, that's fine. But, in that same column I wrote about Jerry the King Lawler, I said, whether or not you like Lawler determines the kind of fan you are, and I guess I'm the kind of fan that would rather see Paul Heyman.
Well, watching Raw this past Monday, we saw one of the Island Boys, as he dubs himself, or other people dub him, Rikishi, against Chris Jericho, the undisputed, unified champion. And much to my dismay, or actually it was to my hooray, I guess you could say, you had a mid-carder wrestling the undisputed, unified champion in Chris Jericho. Wow, they're actually going to put a mid-carder against the champion, right? And the focal point, although it was a non-title match, was the fact that Rikishi may upset Jericho because he's a big guy, right? Because maybe they're going to start building some of these mid-level card guys, plus the fact that he's just in there with Jericho would elevate him a little bit. But much to my dismay, there you go, there's the dismay, the match wasn't centered around the fact that Rikishi could score an upset win over Chris Jericho and maybe build his character a little bit, maybe take himself more seriously in the fans' eyes. No, the selling point of the ass of the match was whether or not Chris Jericho's face was going to wind up in Rikishi's ass. I don't understand it. You have your unified world champion there wrestling a mid-carder. That's a good start. Why in the hell that would be the focal point of the match? Why? Because he's big and he does that? That's great. Do it to referees like he did on Monday. Don't make it the focal point of a match with your world champion, for God's sake. It's just despicable. Done.
Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah. Well,
am I right?
You're right.
Sure.
Well, if we haven't
patronize me.
If we haven't turned away all our viewers yet, if you'd like to read my column, it's called Sharpshooter. You can read it in the Daily News, pick it up in newsstands everywhere right now, or read it on the internet at www.dailynewsmckeysport.com, columnist section.
And if Brian's column's not enough for you, you can pick mine up Sunday on the newsstands, or you can read it on the web. It's www.trivlive.com/sports.
Oh.
Remember, kids, click on the columnist that does not have a picture on the page.
That sounds a little bitter. If you want to reach us on the internet,
Good.
You can email us at prowrestlingreview@lycos.com. You can check out our webpage, prowrestlingreview.com. And, of course, as always, it's ihatepwr@cs.com. The mailbox has been a little empty lately.
Say it again, Jim, really quick.
ihatepwr@cs.com.
You're getting something nasty from me.
Commission, there you go. It's been a little empty lately. People know who you are, who hate us. Fill that mailbox.
And once again, the website, prowrestlingreview.com. And this week's trivia question is, in the King of the Ring, what was it, 98? Greatest King of the Ring of all time, for that year anyway. Who did The Rock wrestle in the first round? And I don't understand why we denotated
No, I'm
The
sorry,
Rock.
it's in the finals, not first round. You stepped out to go to the bathroom.
The point
during the
is,
meeting.
didn't The Rock win the King of the Ring that year? Uh-oh, I'm giving away the answer. Actually, I don't think he did. Anyway, who did he wrestle in the finals? That question, all three on the website. Send it to us, prowrestlingreview.com, along with your comments. We're always appreciative of anything that's spelled correctly and bashes us. Spelled correctly, keep in mind. So, for this week's show, one of the best, I would say, for me, for Rennie, for Brian, and for Jim, this is Pro Wrestling Review, and we'll see you next week if we aren't banned yet or on a different time slot. Goodbye.